Welcome to Truth, Health, and Wellness. I'm Lacey Klontz, and I'm here with Dr. Matt and Deborah St. John. Hey, guys.
Hi, how are
Missed y'all last week.
Glad to
Yes.
be back.
We were busy, but it was good.
Yes, you went on a cruise,
Yes,
right?
they're not relaxing. Not
No,
when you take
you
three
don't
teenagers.
sleep.
Well, they have this. Okay, first off, the cruise was amazing, and I
Mm-hmm.
do have to give a shout out to Carnival. I mean,
pretty good.
I never give shout outs to companies, do I? I'm always like slamming on them.
Mm-hmm.
The ship, the crew, the workforce, the food. But I mean, they don't control that. The employees,
Right.
the employees. It was like the most amazing
great.
group of people.
Really?
Oh, I'm talking. I mean, by the time we were having revival, by the time it was over, something.
Literally?
Wild.
Yeah.
Seriously, yeah. I'm
Wow.
not joking. The place was like, I mean, Spirit of God was moving on that boat. Now we did have one die, one have a heart attack, and two get arrested.
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah,
no
we had
way.
somebody die on us, and then we had another one that had a heart attack. Then we had two that were arrested.
Not in our party.
No, not in our group, but
But,
just on the boat.
you know.
Yeah.
It was a big boat.
It was a big boat.
Somebody
but,
died there?
Yeah.
That's so
Died.
sad. What happened?
we don't know.
Not sure.
We don't know. I think I don't know. It was strange, and then two were arrested. So maybe I don't know. Maybe it was a murder.
Sounds
Murder
like
on the cruise ship.
Sounds like an episode of Unsolved Mysteries.
It does.
Da-da-da.
But in all seriousness, prayers to the family.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It was, and we had a really good trip, and it was interesting because we went to Nassau, which is just your standard old cruise where you got a good deal on.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I almost
And
got
so
stranded there once.
That would not necessarily be a great thing, especially the old Nassau. We'd been a few years before, and let's just say we weren't impressed. So we went
Really?
back this time, and we were impressed. It was so wild. We took a great little tour, and and the guy took us in a van, and we were looking at all the different places, and we just kept, everywhere we'd go, we would hear Christian music in English, and of course because they speak English.
Really?
And
Wow.
and the locals were just, the attitude was just totally different than
So
it used to be.
happy.
So happy, so peaceful,
Singing.
and singing along with the music. And so
It was
we
beautiful.
were like in this dress shop or something, and they were this lady was just singing this gospel music. I mean, I'm talking gospel music, and so finally we're like asking, what's the deal? And they said, well, 90% of Nassau now is Christian, and I'm
It's
like.
When did
Southern
that
Baptist.
And but here was the thing. I'm like, what denomination? And I'm thinking they're Catholics or they're whatever. And they said, no, they're Southern Baptist.
But they're not Southern.
They're pretty south.
Oh, yeah, that's true. If you're
Southeastern.
thinking.
But I mean, undoubtedly the Southern. Hey, congratulations to the Southern Baptist Association for infiltrating Nassau and turning it into a great island.
Yes.
Because truly, it
Aaron
was-
in the background in the control
Yeah,
room is cheering them
because
on.
I'm serious. I mean, wow,
was great.
what a difference. We felt great. We felt. I mean, there was no stress. There was no time did we feel. Of course, we go to Iquitos, Peru. So it's like we can
Yeah.
go places where you might never come back. So it was just absolutely fabulous. Girls had a great time. But they have these clubs on these boats that go to like 1 a.m. every single
kids.
morning for kids. So your kids
What?
all kids all get to
Kids
learn.
bop.
And then they want to talk about at 1 a.m. all the fun that they had. And you're sitting there thinking, well, we had 4 hours sleep last night, 4 hours the night before, because there are always things to do in the morning. Anyway, it was exhausting but wonderful.
Yeah.
And then we've been like doing all kind of stuff at home and moving and all these things. So we're happy to be here and happy to be awake. And but it's been a wild few weeks.
We've been having to take our multivitamin.
Oh my goodness, our supplements have been possibly keeping us alive.
Well, that leads me to my first question. And speaking of questions, if you're watching us on Facebook, we have it right here. If you have a question for Dr. Matt and Miss Deborah, just give us a comment and I will try to get to it. So my question, y'all are health nuts, right?
Actually,
Yeah.
the IRS sometimes calls us the health nut, but it's a
A
long
lot
story.
of people call
Yeah,
us that.
and so we just agree with them. Sure.
So what I want to know is, what did you eat on the cruise?
Well,
Uh-oh.
we were very choosy.
Yeah.
I'm thankful for poached eggs, and
Okay.
we ate.
the scrambled eggs, the boiled eggs in the morning time was basically a staple.
We would eat fruit. Not that the fruit had a whole lot of flavor. We would have. They had yogurt.
They
had,
did?
oh yeah, tons of
They
salads.
usually have
tons of-
everything.
It was okay. We did okay. There were a couple of the coffee. I was able to get completely off of coffee for a little while because their coffee was basically battery acid. There's a trick. They have a coffee shop on the ship that obviously isn't part of the package.
It's not Starbucks.
No, thankfully, but it's pretty good. But the coffee there was fine. But of course, it was an upcharge. You had to pay for that. The free coffee tasted like bitter dirt and other things. mixed in.
That's
combination.
weird.
Yeah, there was finally. I was walking up the stairs at one point, and this guy looked at me, and he looked at my coffee, and he's like, "Where'd you get that?" Because he didn't know the place was there. And I said, "There's a coffee shop right there." And he looked. He held up his water bottle that was full of coffee or whatever, and he goes, "I can't drink this." And I'm like, "Yeah, I know, right?" I said, "Go down there, spend the money. It's worth it." But anyway, it was we did okay. We ate.
There were several grilled chicken options, and not much fried stuff really.
No, there wasn't. And then
you know.
they had a hamburger station, which thankfully we were using American beef. Now, when you go over most countries, you never want to eat a hamburger. Don't go to Amsterdam and eat a hamburger. You'll end up disappointed. It's like lunchroom burgers or something.
Oh, that's sad.
But we did the best we could. We took a lot of EDS, our environmental defense system.
We had Ginger with us.
Oh, the ginger, the
That
motion
was
sickness.
important.
That was a big thing. Oh, this is actually very
For
important.
nausea.
We would make sure the kids would eat some ginger candy. This is basically where they take
Candy?
Yeah, they take freeze dried, and actually they do it in the Caribbean, and then we buy it in the United States, and then we took it back to the Caribbean on the ship. But it's these bags, and we actually have organic ginger dices, is what they call them. Now Foods makes it. Soon to be a sponsor of the show. Now Foods, you rule. And so they take the ginger, the fresh ginger root, they chop it up, and then they steep it in cane sugar to make it taste like something other than a bitter root.
Because it's kind of spicy.
Very spicy. Once it's steeped in this sugar, it's very edible, and people just eat it. Well, it's great for motion sickness. Probably the best thing in the world.
Stomach aches.
And it's also good
nausea.
for stomach stuff. Yes.
Definitely.
And so there were many times on the ship, especially when the captain would decide to floor it, and you'd be blowing by them in the waves, and you'd be moving around. You're sitting there thinking,
Falling
okay,
down in the shower.
Yeah, this is vertigo.
That happened to me the one time I went on a cruise.
Fell down in the shower.
Not all the way, but I was having to lean up against the wall, so I didn't fall.
I once was on a cruise ship, and we were serious. It was a Royal Caribbean cruise, not to slam on Royal Caribbean versus Carnival, even though they're not as good. But we were
But not to slam on.
but we were going, and we were trucking. It was kind of weird because I was actually on a ship, and I had just worked out with Dan Jansen, the Olympic gold medalist who won actually I think just won Olympics, and I was there with Mike Urizzaroni or something like that. He's the guy who won this. He won the winning shot against the Russians in one of the Olympics in the hockey, and it was during the Cold War. But the Cold War did ever end? It's still here, right? And so I had all these cool people that were on this boat, and we were all sitting around trying to act cool, and not really, but not because I didn't win. I've never won a gold medal, and so but we had just worked out with Dan, and so me and Dan Jansen were working out. And we were both trying to be that typical guys that aren't admitting that we're totally nauseous and shouldn't be working out. We're trying to lift.
So you're being men.
Yeah, we're like being males. And so literally we both about died. We bumped into each other a little bit later, and we're sitting at this piano bar. We weren't drinking, but we were at this, actually they were. But then we were, not Dan, but other people. So we were sitting there, and we're having this conversation at the piano bar about how nauseated, how much we feel like we're going to die because of the workout that we just did. And all of a sudden, us and everybody virtually on the ship ends up in the floor. I'm not joking. We all end up dumped in the floor. All of the drinks at the bar, all the bottles are on the ground. Everybody's screaming. And the long story short is our boat had to make an immediate maneuver, and it took the entire ship and shifted it over. People had kids like that they weren't with, like us when we were there. I mean, it would have been horrible.
Oh, yeah.
They didn't know where their kids were. They thought we hit an iceberg, even though there's, obviously we were in, I think we were in the Caribbean at the time. And but if something bad had happened, we thought, and we all ended up on the floor. And that was very awakening and very eye-opening. You're still on a boat. It might be a really nice big boat, but that boat can go over. And anyone who regularly boats knows that one of the most dangerous things on the earth is a boat in the water. For some reason, it seems more dangerous than a car sometimes. So that was an experience that we had one time.
You're making me really want to go back on a cruise.
Yeah, really. Yeah. Well, just don't hang out with gold medalists when you're on the ship, and you'll be okay.
You're going to need a bigger boat.
Well, we did, and we were actually. It was funny. We thought we were on a big boat, so we pulled in the dock, and we're like, look at our big boat over there. And all of a sudden, another Carnival ship shows up. This thing's huge, and it's got a roller coaster. And we're like, and our kids are like, they have a roller coaster, Dad. I'm like, shut up, don't look. And then the next thing you know, a Royal Caribbean boat comes in, and it's coming in. I'm like, is that boat as big as I think it is? And sure enough, it's like this big. Our boat is this big, and the other boat's this big. I'm thinking, we're in the tiniest little boat, yet there's like 2,000 people or something.
What was the name of it?
Elation.
Elation.
Carnival
Oh, mine
Elation.
was the
Carnival.
Ecstasy. That's the teeny tiny carnival boat I was on.
Okay.
Ecstasy. Well, that
The
one sounds like, was that an
Ecstasy.
adult only? Anyway.
No,
So,
no. I think it was their oldest ship, though.
Oh, well.
Was it going out of New Orleans?
No, went out of Cape Canaveral,
Okay.
actually.
Yeah, Port Canaveral's. Yeah, most of them go out of there. We went out of Jacksonville.
Oh,
And we
okay.
just didn't want to drive any further. But anyway, the cruise ship, you can be kind of carefully healthy on a cruise ship, but I wouldn't bank on it unless you. I mean, we found out you can actually bring a ton of your own drinks and things. Like.
Oh, yeah, I remember
If we had
that.
known that,
Okay.
we would have totally brought some things that
Way more stuff.
you
yeah.
know that we would have obviously had with us instead of trying to suffer through what they had. Actually, there was one juice that they
Suffer
had.
through.
They had one juice that was a really good juice, and I was concerned. And they had a lemonade that I was concerned about the ingredients of. The guy was filling it, and I'm like, "Can I see that container?" And so I got the container. I just know that the first thing I'm gonna see is high fructose corn syrup. First ingredient, lemons. Next ingredient, sugar. I was happy. I'm like, hey,
Two natural
That's good.
things.
that was at least we don't have a bunch of junk in it.
Exactly.
Other than the sugar, which is, I don't want lemonade without sugar personally. Do you?
Yeah, who would? Ugh. Well, stevia.
A little bit of stevia is fine. You can make some decent lemonade that's low sugar.
I make
Decent.
what I call healthy Sprite. I get purified water
Mm-hmm.
and just squeeze some lemons and limes in there and put stevia in it.
That's nice.
Healthy
Yeah.
Sprite.
Very
There
good.
you go, like a little spritzer.
Yeah.
Use carbonated water and it is like a Sprite.
Actually, I tried that a few weeks ago and it fizzed over
Yeah, well,
when
now
I
you're
put
making-
the stevia in it.
Now you're making a
my.
witch's brew. You're like making science experiments.
That's kind of what it felt like. I felt like I was in third grade science class
Well,
again.
at least you learned.
Now that leads me to my next question.
Okay.
Speaking of drinks, we know there's a ton of alcohol on cruises.
Yeah.
There's a ton of alcohol everywhere, let's be
Right.
real. How do you feel about alcohol? I don't know if we've ever discussed that. since I've been doing
Alcohol,
this.
from a dietary standpoint, obviously there's adverse effects for
Mm-hmm.
consuming much alcohol. Our bodies can make alcohol. We're kind of teetotalers. We don't.
Yeah, I figured,
I guess
yeah.
since we got together, we made a deal. We decided that I can't remember anything intelligent that I did while drinking. She couldn't remember anything intelligent she did while drinking. Most of the stupid things that I've ever done involve drinking, and just with that alone, I figured that hey, let's not have alcohol, and it worked out pretty well. So yeah, we're probably going to have to go back to this conversation, but alcohol, there's fermented kombucha drinks. You can go over here.
I have heard
Yeah,
of.
you could go
yes.
to Publix and find fermented kombucha drinks that have like 1 to 1.5% alcohol. Now that doesn't sound like much, right? Well, a Miller Lite has 2% alcohol.
Interesting.
So in other words, you're not really getting that much alcohol, but at the same time, it affects you. It can have
I've
an effect.
heard. I haven't tried it, but I've
Kombucha
heard. Mm-hmm.
drinks, yeah, and the fermentation process can be a healthy thing. In the case of kombucha, I can't even drink kombucha anymore. It's something happened to me about. Well, she started. We don't do anything just lightweight. Before you know it, we're like drinking kombucha drinks. We're like, she starts home brewing. She's like got the whole concoction going, and it was about the time that we were approached by a federal park ranger in Cades Cove, Tennessee, while we were laying out.
Oh.
So we're going to go to break on that one. We're going to get
We
back.
are.
We have to tell that story.
So stay tuned so you can hear the rest. We'll be right back.
May not believe it, but it's
was a
true.
good-
The 2024 Team 1 Chevys are here. All 23-24 Silverado Light Duties have 2.9% financing for 72 months. The hottest new 2024 Team 1 Chevy Blazer, 1.9% financing and no payments till April. And the #1 selling family vehicle, the Equinox. 24 models. You got it. 1.9% financing and no payments till April. Team 1 Chevrolet, home of the best people, the best service, period.
What can you buy for $10? A hat? A milkshake? 166 channels plus live sports? That's right, for only $10 you can get 166 channels of classic TV shows and movies, including the latest news update from all around the world and local sports. Just simply go to 24ctn.com and click download, and then for only $10 you can have access to the best TV available.
At Family Prosthetic and Medical Supply, we care about you. We offer custom prosthetics, orthotics, diabetic shoes, and durable medical supplies. We're located here in Alexandria, Alabama. where it's a country feel but professional care. Come see us today.
I'm Alan Parnell, the Parnell Insurance Agency. We've been here in Oxford and Alabama, Tallapoosa, Georgia since 1990. With Auto Owners Insurance, we're able to give customers competitive pricing along with excellent coverages. Parnell Insurance can handle all of your personal, commercial, and life insurance needs. We have a very experienced staff, both personal and commercial. All together, we've got about 125 years experience. Come see what our insurance agency can do for you in Oxford, Alabama, and Tallapoosa, Georgia.
Auto Owners Insurance.
Welcome back to Truth, Health, and Wellness. I'm Lacey Klontz with Matt and Deborah St. John. So we left you all with a cliffhanger before the break. You were telling us about alcohol and kombucha.
Okay, so she's
Is that like decaf alcohol?
Park Ranger.
No, well, so she's home brewing kombucha, and kombucha is a fermentation. It's a fermented fungus.
It's a tea.
It's a fungus?
Yeah.
It's a
And
fungus
people
fungus.
drink it?
Well,
They do.
there's a
What?
thing called a SCOBY, which
Okay.
is from an unknown origin. You have to get it from somebody that already makes kombucha, and it grows and multiplies.
And then you get it from a friend who gets it from a friend who gets it from a
Right,
friend who gets
so
it from a friend. And they've been doing this
We
for
don't
like
really
thousands
know
of
where
years.
it came from, but you brew some tea and you leave it out with the SCOBY in it for
My
so
theory is someone
long.
sneezed in a cup one day, and that's where it started. But that's another story.
Then
That
it-
really makes me want some.
well, it ferments and it creates all of the probiotics
Yeah.
and stuff that's in it that's good for you.
Beneficial bacteria.
Oh.
So by this time we're home, and she's making like a peach. She made a peach flavored one that's just amazing. Of course, the fermentation is normally pretty light, and you can't tell. I mean, it's not strong like an alcohol or whatever. Hers were kind of a little strong. So we're outside of Cades Cove. We're at this place in outside of Townsend, Tennessee. They call it the Y, and it's where a lot of people just go out, throw their blankets down, and then lay at the water where the little river goes right by, and people swim and play, and the kids play and all that. And that's what we were doing. And so we're laying there at Little River, acting like we're locals. Got our home brew kombucha sitting there
In a mason
in an
jar.
unmarked mason jar in Tennessee. And so we're sitting there, and about that
Smart.
time, I mean, out of nowhere, I literally hear from right behind us, "Hey guys!" And I look up, and there he is, man. He's got his gun in his
Is that
belt.
what he sounded like?
Absolutely.
That is so
that's
not threatening.
Exactly.
Hey,
Well,
guys.
that's the reason I like look up and I'm like, "Hey, dude!" And but man, he's got it all. He's got tasers and pep. He got everything. And so I mean, he's a federal park ranger. So I'm like, "Yes, sir. Yes, sir." And he says, "I was going to ask, what's in the jar?" And of course, I look at it and I start laughing because I'm thinking, this looks like moonshine. And we're in Tennessee, in Townsend, where I literally know moonshiners, know of them. And so, knew them, and knew of them. And so I have this thing, and I'm like, well, this is kombucha. And so I hand it to him, which I don't think he expected. So at this point, this guy was really squeaky clean. He was so funny. And he takes it and he's like, he unscrews it. And he
Just like that.
he sniffs it. He goes, "That's kombucha, all right." And he hands it back to me.
He knew.
And so, supposedly. So I hand it back to Deborah, and he leaves. And we joked around. I said, "Well, maybe we shouldn't have put it in an unmarked mason jar and been out here in the federal land, and in front of everyone." And he laughed, and we had a good. And he walked off. I unscrewed that lid and sniffed it, and it smelled like nothing but peach moonshine. I'm not joking. It's reeked.
It had a kick.
It had a kick to it, and there's no way that he thought or knew that was kombucha. It was just God's favor and posture that made that whole thing just be nothing. He had profiled us enough, I think, by that point, and he felt awkward enough. Plus, I mean, or either that, or maybe the guy made homebrew kombucha at home, or his mom or something did. Notice I said mom and not wife.
But going back to, is alcohol actually good for you?
Is it good for you? Not really. Alcohol can be used as a medicine, especially a carrier, to extract active ingredients, just like we're talking about with kombucha, just like we use in herbal tinctures. Herbal tinctures are where they take an herb, let's say ginger root. Let's say we take ginger root that hasn't been steeped in sugar, and instead we want to get really strong ginger tincture for maybe as an anti-inflammatory more than for the stomach. So you would take the ginger and you would pour either vodka or even up to like 180 proof alcohol. You would saturate the ginger root. You'd put it in a cool, dry place, and you'd agitate it, daily. Shake it, not agitate it like kids can agitate you. And you would take that, and then after about normally 2 weeks to a month,
6 weeks.
6 weeks, you would, I forgot, ours are really strong. And so after about 6 weeks, if you're at St. John's, you then strain off the alcohol from the herb, and now what you have is an herbal tincture. Now, yes, it's an alcohol. Now, you're only talking about an ounce total.
You're taking it in tiny minute doses.
But that amount of alcohol will drive those nutrients and those compounds and those sterols and those polysaccharides and everything else that are in the plants straight into your system and allow you to absorb them stronger. I've got one more story. I can't believe I'm going to tell this story about the ketose. So we're leaving the ketose. We haven't had a drink of alcohol in 10 years. But once again, our bodies, everyone's body makes alcohol. When you eat too much sugar, your body converts it to alcohol. There's everyone,
Really?
to some degree, yes. And so there's alcohol that exists within the human anatomy, and we convert some foods to alcohol.
Wait, so is that like when kids eat too much sugar and they get a sugar rush and they're going crazy? It's like their version of being drunk in a sense?
In a way, in a sense, absolutely. And so,
Interesting.
where was? Oh, so we were down and we were in the Lima airport, which is, if you ever watch To Catch a Smuggler, that's like the airport they always show, because it's they're constantly running drugs and stuff through there, and people and other things.
Classic.
And so there we are on the bottom, and we bump into some people from Georgia. And anytime gringos see each other in these places, you're like, "Hey, what are you doing here?" "I don't know. What are you doing here?" And it's like, we're missionaries. It's like, "You are really? Where have you been?" "Iquitos." "Are you serious? Why are you in Iquitos?" "Well, where are you from?" Where'd you come from?" "Iquitos." "Why are you in Iquitos?" It's like, well, we do mission work. And so we bump into these people. They're from Georgia. They're awesome people. It's this elderly lady. I say elderly lady. She's in her 70s, and she's like beautiful and healthy. And her husband, he's like, man, he looks like he could just like pull a mule behind him. And then there's this other guy, and we're talking guns, and we're talking all this stuff. By the time it's over, we're just all friends, and we're independent missionaries. I mean, we have a 501c3. They have 501c3, and yet they're not affiliated with any church. I mean, they go to a church, but they weren't affiliated. The church didn't send them. Churches just about don't send people anymore. There's a couple around here that do to Iquitos because it's so rough, and so or so potentially rough. So we just get along great, and we're doing great. Well, the problem was I was about to die. We had given away our last bottle of P77, and I had Giardia right then, the parasite. So I mean, I was suffering. I was barely functioning. And so we're there, and we don't have the P77. And I remembered, wait a minute, there's a pharmacy upstairs. And in Peru, you don't need a prescription for anything. So we're like, oh my gosh, maybe we could get some Flagyl. And Flagyl is technically a bacteria. It's technically a natural medication, or at least naturally derived, and it's a form of bacteria that's used and effective as an antiparasitic to kill the parasite. So we go up there to take some Flagyl, or get the Flagyl from the pharmacy. They happily sell it to us. And then I'm looking at the Flagyl, I'm like, what would really get this thing in my system and knock this out quick? Because first off, you don't want to be sick on airplanes and all this, and airports, and you got to hide it a little bit, or they won't let you on the airplane. So I'm like, what I should do is get a little bourbon or a little something, a little bit of alcohol, and take it with it to knock it down. So we sneak up to we actually are across from the where we leave?
The gate?
The gate. We're across from the gate, and we find a nice little restaurant, and we run in it real quick. Now they're already lining up at the gate, and so we're watching the gate. And so I'm like, ordered a bourbon, which is really weird. We're joking about it, and I'm like, well, may as well get the best one I can get, and we're ought to have a so-and-so 15-year, single barrel, whatever.
What brand was it?
I think it was a Macallan, actually, or something like that. I don't even know. Nothing that I remembered. And so nothing that I remembered from previous, because it was just one thing, right? And so they bring it, though, and when they bring it, bourbon's supposed to be a subtle drink that that's just
watered down whiskey.
It's all it is just it's whiskey in a glass, and normally I'll make a piece of ice. No, not mine. It's this tall. It's got an umbrella in it. It's got a straw in it. I'm sitting there thinking, what am I going to drink?
They said, you're on vacation here.
And I'm like, so they put it out in front of me, and I look across, and the first thing I do is I see every one of those missionaries standing there staring at us from across the.
No.
Just there looking at it. And then at some point, I'm like, I push the thing over, and I'm like, take the umbrella and all out. So she's disrobing my drink and everything. And meanwhile, they're over there looking at me, they're like waving. And so,
So give me some.
but I consumed
kidding.
that. I consumed that bourbon. It was very shocking to my system. Like, what are you doing, St. John? And but it made that flagyl work so fast that before I even got on the plane, I was already feeling better.
Really? That's interesting.
Because it drove it home. But alcohol is used a lot in medicine, and it is a medicine in and of itself. We make our cough syrups that we make at home for our kids. I would actually taste test and spit it out because I wouldn't drink it, but we wouldn't use bourbon, honey, lemon, and peppermint.
Is that a hot toddy?
Hot toddy. Yeah, and give it to them, and it's a great expectorant, something that'll loosen up the phlegm and congestion and work. Now, what are my beliefs about consumption of alcohol on a regular basis? Well, it depends on you. We're not exactly moderate people. Anybody who knows us is like, no, yeah, it's true. So with that, in with our past and with our knowledge about things, it's just best for us to be teetotalers. However,
There's nothing wrong with that
if
at
somebody,
all.
if somebody, it's also not. There's not anything wrong with somebody mowing their grass and having a beer or having a glass of wine at night or something like that. For us, there is for us, but that has nothing to do with anyone else. And so, it's a difference.
Most beers and wine, though, have high levels of glyphosate.
And
so
other
you
things.
have to watch out for pesticides and things that are actually in those. And then alcohols that are made from corn. Corn is very susceptible to being sprayed with glyphosate for drying and all that stuff.
No wine coming from France, organic or inorganic, is without glyphosate.
Yeah.
It's all
Really?
contaminated with glyphosate. Not one single wine. The only way that you can get a wine that doesn't have pesticides is to really trust the company and get it from likely California, and it has to be certified organic. And I mean that's the end of it. I mean you can't find it.
Speaking of wine, I have heard over the years that doctors say that a glass of red wine every night can be good for your heart. Do you think that's true or a myth? I'm thinking you're going to say myth.
It's somewhat of a myth. The reason they say it is because wine contains something. Well, one of the reasons is because it contains a lot of different constituents, but one is called resveratrol, and resveratrol is a constituent that they say is anti-aging, that it helps with the immune system. There are better sources of resveratrol than wine. You can get it in a capsule form. You can get it in little. You can get all kinds of different sources of it. Japanese knotweed. Now, most people would rather say I'm having a glass of wine than say, oh, I'm going to eat some Japanese knotweed. But it is, you can get resveratrol without having to get it from the wine. But it's true though. There was a lady the other day at Steel Magnolias, and she was 91 years old, and she asked me something about what can I be doing better, to change my health. And I'm sitting there thinking, well, if that lady has a glass of wine every night, then obviously at 91 years old, she could teach us a few things about how to stay well. Yeah. So at that point, you're like, well, you know what? If she could quit drinking that glass of wine every night and die the next day. You know what I'm saying? Or a week later, just because her body is so accustomed to those nutrients or those chemicals and phytochemicals that she's taking. This is like, in the case of a lot of people, who are taking certain things. So you have to be a little careful, a little mindful. Alcohol is not really, it's not our favorite thing. It's not something that I believe is a positive for most people, but it's not necessarily the horrible thing that some people sometimes try to make it out to be from a health or a scientific standpoint.
Yeah, but let's see, you said no wine from
France.
Okay, and no alcohol at all made from corn?
Well, corn unless it's organic or unless you trust the company.
Well, and cane sugar too.
Yep, rums and all that, saturated with chemicals.
Looking for organic versions is really the best option.
And if you can't find them, you can actually, a lot of times, order it in. Or have your wine shop or whatever you buy from, order it in. And they can order from different sources.
And so I know that tequila, that's made from a cactus, right?
It's made
Something
from anger,
like that?
I believe,
Anger.
isn't it? Isn't tequila made from pure meanness?
Some kind of plant.
It's made from agave.
Vodka is made of from potatoes,
Yeah.
which is crazy to.
Yeah, potato.
How does that even work?
And they get it from potato fermentation, and then you also have the other sources of agave for tequila. And there's a source for everything.
There is. Well, on that note, they're telling us we've got to go. So we thank you all so much for joining us. Again, I'm Lacey Klontz with Dr. Matt and Deborah St. John. We'll see you next week. Have a great evening.